Salve mates, this is the story of 3 women who never met and of 7 scenarios that define every day of their lives. We're going to score each woman from Athens, Sparta and Rome across 7 scenarios, and by the end you will know which one wins. One of these women lived behind locked door in Athens, where the greatest democracy in the ancient world happened. Athens invented democracy, philosophy and the concept of civic virtue, and also built one of the most rigidly confining systems for women in the ancient world. Pericles, the greatest democrat, explicitly said a woman's glory was to be spoken of as little as possible. The name of Athenian is Callista. The Spartan women ran barefoot through the streets, trained to throw a javelin, rode horses naked, and could own more land than most men, but her entire existence was tied to what she meant for the Spartan state. Her name is Gorgo. And the Roman woman could sit at a dinner table, control her own fortune, divorce when she pleased, and still could be exiled for adultery, get beaten for being drunk, and lose her children in any divorce. Her name is Cornelia. The women in this comparison did not live at the same time. The Roman woman lived centuries after her Greek equals, but these societies are compared because they are the best documented female experiences of antiquity, so not united in time, but united in the amount of information we have. So the same Mediterranean sunshine, but 3 utterly different answers to the same question: which one would you actually want to marry into? Grab a pen and keep a score as we go. Scenario number 1, marriage at 16. Callista from Athens had no say in the matter, none. Her Kyrios, male guardian, who was her father first, if no father, then a brother, and then the nearest available male relative, arranged everything. So she may have never spoken to the man she was marrying, and her husband would likely be 30 to 35 years old. The age gap of 15 to 20 years was considered ideal in Athens. The man had completed his military service, established himself, and was ready for a wife. And she had been waiting, mostly indoors, for this moment since she was a child. The expectations of virginity was absolute. Her father's honor depended on it. If she arrived at the marriage bed and was found not to be a virgin, the marriage could be cancelled and the family shamed. As for refusing, the law did not ask what she wanted. If she resisted, there was no court for her, no right to defend herself, and no protection from the obligation. On her wedding day, authority over her life passed simply from one household to another. Gorgo inhabited a different world at the same age. Marriages in Sparta were sometimes arranged by mutual consent, even by something resembling love. She had a voice, and her husband would likely be much closer to her in age, often 20 to 25, because Sparta believed young couples produced stronger children. Virginity of the bride was expected, but less obsessively controlled. Sparta cared more about physical fitness for childbearing than ritual purity. The right to refuse existed here in a way it simply did not in Athens. A Roman Cornelia fell under Patria Potestas, absolute legal power of her father. But by the late Republic, an openly expressed objection could derail a marriage. By the 1st century AD, jurists were debating the necessity of a woman's consent. The decision still belonged largely to her family, but her voice had begun to enter the conversation. And here was Rome's particular hypocrisy. A bride had to consent to be legally married, but consent was defined as not actively objecting. Silence counted as yes, a weeping bride, a trembling bride, a bride who said nothing and stared at the floor, still a yes. Also, virginity was required and publicly confirmed. Roman brides wore white precisely to signal purity. So ranking wise, Gorgo wins in this scenario. You're marrying someone of your own age who has opinions and can hold a conversation, plus you can still hang out with your barrack bros. More on that later. Callista is a teenager you might have never spoken to, and Cornelia is basically forever a daddy's girl who is still attached to her family. Sparta is the one where you're getting something close to a peer. Scenario number 2, absence of husband in the household. Cornelia occupied a middle ground in this scenario, but it was surprisingly a broad middle ground. She could go to markets, temples and public baths, but usually with an attendant unless she had 3 kids. Then she didn't need any male with her at all, more on that later. Under the common marriage sine manu, without the hand, meaning the husband did not gain legal ownership of her, she kept her own property and her father, not her husband, remained her legal guardian. When the father died, a male tutor took his place, but by the Empire period this often was a formality. The gap between Athenian woman and a wealthy Roman widow was a different universe, because Callista from Athens stayed where she was. She was expected to remain in the women's rooms, a separate section of the house designed to keep her removed from the public world. Respectable Athenian women rarely appeared in public alone. Athenian law prevented her from entering contracts or conducting transactions without male approval. Ironically, women who had more freedom in Athens were not citizen wives. These women were slaves, poor women, and foreign women. The respectable woman's confinement was, in a savage irony, the mark of her decency. There was, however, one escape, the Thesmophoria, a religious festival that gave women in Athens, like Callista, 3 days of genuine public life each year, running the event by themselves, excluding men entirely. Although the core activities of Thesmophoria were encampment, fasting, and retrieving fertility objects from underground pits. Gorgo, on the other hand, was already outside no matter where her husband was. She moved freely through the streets of Sparta. With her husband away, and Spartan married men did not live with their wives until age 30, living instead in military barracks, she had been running the household for years, possibly since the wedding day. By the 3rd century BC, women like Gorgo owned an estimated 40% of Spartan land. They managed estates, supervised helots, controlled finances. Aristotle from Athens complained bitterly that Spartan women were too free and blamed them for Sparta's eventual decline. Scoring, Cornelia is victorious in this scenario because she is competent, can manage the estate and make decisions. Callista from Athens gets 0 points because a wife locked in a house with no authority is also a wife who cannot handle a single problem while you're gone. And Gorgo from Sparta gets 1 point because she has been functionally independent since before you married her, owns land in her own name, and your absence changes absolutely nothing about how she operates. Unfortunately, you are largely irrelevant to her. Scenario number 3, she's caught having an affair. Callista faced ruin so complete it deserved to be called annihilation, rightfully. Athenian men were legally required to divorce cheating women, not permitted, required. If they did not, those men lost their civic standing. She was then permanently barred from public religious ceremonies, which in Athens meant exclusion from civic life itself. She lost her children, her home, her standing, any prospect of respectable remarriage. If you think she got it rough, then don't be mistaken, Callista's lover would face different risks. The husband who caught him in the act could legally kill him, or, more commonly, he could humiliate him by forcing a radish or a fish into his rectum. And somehow this was considered an appropriate reaction to infidelity. In Sparta, Gorgo existed in frameworks so different that affair didn't exist. Sparta looked at monogamy the way it looked at comfort. Irrelevant. If another man was more likely to produce stronger children, Plutarch tells us that husbands could willingly hand over their wives to those men. Not because they had a fetish for it, but because Sparta had convinced them that state owned the marriage, the womb, and, in a sense, even the husband himself. What most societies would call cuckoldry, Sparta applauded as patriotism. The only question that mattered wasn't when married to Gorgo, is this my child? But will he make a good hoplite? And how Roman Cornelia dealt with adultery? Cornelia faced the full force of the Roman Lex Iulia, the adultery law passed by Augustus, enforced against his own daughter. Augustus' daughter Julia was caught being promiscuous. She was then exiled to a barren island under the very law her father had written. He refused to see her and she died there eventually of starvation. So in practice in Rome, husband lost legal standing if he failed to divorce a cheating wife within 60 days. He could be accused of acting as her pimp. Infidelity in Rome's legal language was something only women could commit. As for the ranking, Sparta gets 0 because I really don't like sharing. Rome gets 1 point because in Athens you can also kill the lover or at least probe him. Scenario number 4, divorce. Cornelia of the early Roman Empire had genuine easy access to divorce. Either party could simply declare the marriage over. Cicero's wife divorced him when she was in her 50s, remarried twice more and died at 103. But Cornelia's dowry was returnable, her inherited possessions remained hers. A wealthy Roman widow leaving a marriage walked away with her fortune intact. Her children, however, did not walk with her. The father's legal claim was absolute. She could divorce easily, keep her money, and also lose every child she had ever born. Gorgo from Sparta could initiate divorce with more practical ability. Sparta's communal child-rearing system meant children belonged to the state as much as to either parent. Spartan divorce was relatively uncomplicated by ancient standards. Neither party was criminalized and remarriage was not stigmatized if it served Sparta's need for soldiers. And Callista in Athens had a right to initiate divorce. In theory. In practice, without a male advocate, without the ability to represent herself in any legal proceeding, this was nearly impossible. The most famous attempt, Hipparete, wife of Alcibiades, the brilliant Athenian commander, went to the Archon to register her divorce. Alcibiades walked into the office, picked her up and carried her home. No man dared to oppose him. So scoring, Athens is the winner here because she cannot leave you no matter how much you screw up in the relationship, and if she tries you can just carry her back. For the same reason, Rome gets 0 points because Cornelia can walk out tomorrow and take her entire fortune and you have no mechanism to stop her. Unless you have kids and you aren't afraid to use them as a bargaining tool. And Sparta gets 1 point because children go to the state rather than to you personally, which is an unsatisfying outcome even if it reduces her leverage over you. Scenario number 5, pregnant and childless. Callista's entire social value was as producer of legitimate male heirs. A healthy son was the closest thing to security her Athenian world offered. Without children she had failed. Her husband could legally divorce her and replace her with a concubine who had demonstrated fertility. Blame fell on her automatically. Hippocratic medicine had identified the causes of infertility as female defects: a wandering womb, insufficient bodily heat, an imbalance of the 4 bodily fluids: blood, yellow bile, black bile and phlegm. If Callista did not want a child because the pregnancy was dangerous, the timing was wrong, or simply she had reasons of her own, she had access to herbal preparations. There was no law in Athens prohibiting abortion, and the unborn child had no legal standing. But if the husband did not want a child, the instrument was not abortion, but exposure. After the birth, the father performed the amphidromia, carrying the newborn around the hearth to formally accept it into the household. But if he did not perform the ritual, the child was not a member of the family. It could be left at the city gates to die or to be taken by whoever passed. And the exposure fell overwhelmingly on girls. An Athenian father who already had daughters did not need anyone's permission to leave a newborn girl in the cold. In the same scenario, Gorgo faced civic failure rather than personal disgrace when childless. Her main purpose was feeding bodies into the Spartan war machine. If a marriage failed to produce children, the solution might be another husband, another wife, or another father for the child. The state wanted Spartans. Everything else was negotiable. If the husband was believed infertile, she was expected to find a more capable man to have children with. But the state's grip on reproduction went further than everywhere else. It also had a eugenistic council of elders which examined every newborn and could order exposure if the child was judged unfit for Spartan life. The decision whether their own child lived or not was not theirs at all. It was Sparta's decision. Cornelia lived under Augustus' active intervention in reproduction. The Lex Iulia penalized childless adults. Unmarried people and couples without children could not inherit from non-relatives. The message was produce children or be legally diminished. But the same laws created the right of 3 children. A freeborn woman who bore 3 kids was freed from the requirement to have a male guardian at all. She could conduct legal business independently, inherit without restriction, act with full legal autonomy. And this was Rome's clearest statement of what a woman was worth. 3 surviving children and you may be the person in your own right. Abortion was practiced openly in Rome, prescribed by physicians like Soranus. No Roman law forbade it. At birth, the father held tolere liberos, the right to lift the child, ritual act of acknowledgement similar to the Athenian one. If he did not lift it, the child would be exposed. Roman law gave this decision to him and not to her. So Cornelia had carried the child, survived the birth, but had no legal claim over what happened in the moment. The letter that survives from this world was written around 1 BC by a Roman man named Hilarion to his pregnant wife, Alice, whom he addresses with evident affection. He instructs her on household matters, tells her he's thinking of her, and then writes, if you bear a child, if it's a boy, let it be, if it's a girl, expose it. This was an example of a love letter in ancient Rome. Scoring-wise, Callista and Cornelia are actually closer than they first appear. In Rome, Augustus starts telling you how many children you should have with state incentives and penalties for childlessness, which gives Athens the edge. Sparta's creepy system, where a bunch of old eugenistic men decide whether my baby can live or not, is out of the question. Whatever Sparta's advantages elsewhere, this is not a system I would want anywhere near my family. Scenario number 6, drunk. Cornelia navigated a complex moral landscape. Early Roman law supposedly permitted a husband to kill his wife for drinking from a wine jar. Ignatius Messenius was said to have beaten his wife to death for it and been commended by Romulus. The story circulated for centuries, an exemplary tale of virtue. And by the empire this was not enforced, but the moral category remained. In Rome, a woman's reputation rested on a single ideal: modesty. To lose control of one's drinking was read as evidence that control had been lost elsewhere as well. For Callista, the problem was different. A respectable Athenian wife could drink wine at home or during women's religious festivals. The scandal began when she drank publicly, especially in a male company. The drinking party symposium belonged to men, and the women commonly seen drinking there were entertainers, slaves, musicians, and heterae. A citizen wife holding a wine cup in that setting risked to be mistaken for one of those women. The Athenian citizen wife was not supposed to be drunk in public because she was not really supposed to be in public in the first place. And in Sparta, Gorgo drank openly alongside the rest of her community. Sparta judged citizens more by discipline than by sex. A woman who drank too much at a festival might earn ridicule for lacking self-control. What many Greeks regarded as scandalous, Spartans treated as part of ordinary communal life. Scoring, in this case, I'm gonna abandon so far my liberal approach and give 2 to the nation of Romulus, 1 for Athens and 0 to Sparta. Because there is nothing worse on God's green earth than drunk women. Scenario number 7, exercise. Gorgo was required to be physically strong. Their athletic garments were deliberately short even by ancient standards. The rest of Greece called them thigh flashers as an insult, but Spartans took it as a compliment. Spartan girls ran, wrestled, threw the discus and the javelin from childhood because the state had determined that strong mothers bore strong soldiers. But they never served in army. Sparta trained women like athletes not because they trusted them with a spear, but because it trusted them with a womb. Their bodies were strengthened to build the next generation of soldiers and also to torture other men who didn't meet women's physical standard. Callista, on the other hand, did not exercise publicly. Physical culture in Athens was conducted in the gymnasia, literally places of nakedness, from which Athenian women were excluded. The Olympic Games barred women entirely, not just from competing, but also from watching. A married woman caught watching Olympic Games faced the death penalty. The one woman recorded as having attended was Cleopatra, who disguised herself as a trainer to watch her son compete. She was caught and sparred execution only because her father, her brothers, and her son were all Olympic champions. As for Cornelia, Rome sought moderation. A respectable woman was expected to be healthy, graceful, and active, but not an athlete. Cornelia could frequently visit the public baths, where female nudity was socially accepted. Rome found the perfect compromise. Your wife could stay healthy and attractive, and she just wasn't allowed to make you question your masculinity on the running track. Scoring, Athens gets 0. A woman who is confined, sedentary, and likely in poorer health is not someone you would want to start a family with. On the other hand, a healthy partner who takes fitness seriously is a huge advantage. The problem is that I dislike competition, so the winner in this category is Rome with 2 points. Cornelia enjoyed public life, baths, and regular movement, but not the intense athletic culture of Sparta that might leave you wondering whether you're still the best athlete in the household. 3 societies of antiquity, 3 women, the same Mediterranean sky above all of them. Callista lived under her husband's authority, Gorgo lived under authority of the state, and Cornelia lived under the illusion that those 2 things were different. In my scoring, Athens and Rome share first place. Sparta loses not because I cannot handle a strong, independent woman, but because I cannot handle a cuckold society where eugenicistic elders are killing my newborns based on their physical appearance. Let me know in the comments which one of these 3 women tickled your ancient senses: Cornelia, Gorgo, or Callista. Stay strong!